And Green offers 3 steps to apprenticeship, to successful apprenticeship, is the deep observation of your who you're apprenticing under, followed by skills acquisition, learn to do what they do extremely well, and then finally experimentation, step 3, where you learn to make those skills your own, and eventually you go beyond them, doing what you ultimately only you can do. He talks about the importance of getting feedback when you're in the apprenticeship years, when you have that mentor, 5 to 10 years, lots of work, and he says that's when you're really, it's not, like you kind of said, it's not about the money or anything like that. The most important thing to Green when it comes to mentoring is that you're literally changing your attitude, you're changing your character. It's almost like you're developing your character for what's next. Go ahead.
He said the dividends, he says something to the effect of, don't do anything for money. You're far better taking an unpaid internship with somebody that you're really passionate about or really interested in learning, or somebody who's at the creative edge of their field or something like that, because it'll spark something that's inside of you that would pay vast dividends, far greater than any amount of money that you'd be able to get by, some job that would, pay you money. And he said there's also a certain amount of freedom to that, because you're not getting paid, because you're not, there's no expectation from the master down to the apprentice. They end up sharing a lot more with you than they would if they were paying you. If you're getting paid, then you almost have to justify what you're doing and, get more concerned about social politics and stuff. So it's a very freeing way of being able to learn with no pressure, that's very natural for the human body to experience. One that's completely foreign. I mean, I don't know how or why. I mean, I know how or why, because the powers that be don't want this. But this is what worked for so many years. If you wanted to become a watchmaker, you worked, under a master, and you learned the tricks of the trade, and, eventually you would, spend, and Robert Greene, I guess, did a study, or somebody did a study, says that it takes 10,000 hours, or the equivalent of 7 years worth of work, to really hone the skills necessary for you to, step out on your own, create your own masterpiece. That's what an apprentice would do. They would create a masterpiece, that would show that they are masters and that they're able to go out and go, go on their own path and start creating their own things.
Again, the thing that he says is that when you're looking for the apprenticeship, you're not looking for money, a title, position, or anything like that. You're literally transforming your mind and your character. That's the big thing to harp on there. But to go from apprenticeship, after you found your calling, you find someone that you want to apprentice under, you find a master that you can learn from. But from there, he says the next step to becoming a master is to learn social intelligence, mastering social intelligence. Green says, Chris, that the most effective attitude to adopt is one of supreme acceptance. The world is full of people with different characters and temperaments. We all have a dark side, a tendency to manipulate, and aggressive desires. So Green's going on to say that if you don't understand the nature of yourself and the nature of people, well, then that's going to inhibit you from furthering your progress. Once you get from under the wing of who you're apprenticing under, your teacher, you're out in the world. But if you don't have that social intelligence, you're setting yourself up for failure. To me, that started reminding me of, thinking of the cunning ways of psychopaths, how so many systems are out there to take advantage of you, things of that nature. And I took away from it like, hey, he's kind of saying you need to understand these type of things, or you're going to you're kind of ripe to be picked, if you will, by scheming, cunning men later down the road. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of took it as, listen to all and follow none, that the individual must constantly be on guard of becoming complacent in their growth. I think far too often that people find, whatever secret they think is it and grasp onto it as, a dying branch that they're holding onto, that's the truth that they see in the world. And unfortunately, every single person in the world thinks they're absolutely right about everything that they do, and the rest of the world is wrong. So, I think it's incumbent upon the individual to keep an open mind, which is why when, I started The Greatest Truth Never Told in the Sons of Liberty Academy, to listen to all and follow none, to not grasp on to any ideology to think that there is an end to this, that, true mastery is going to be somebody who's going to be able to adapt and think and question and bring forth, new solutions to new problems. One of the reasons why we talk about the trivium is because you need to apply logic to the situation, and not be where I was. I thought, being Republican wasn't enough. I had to be conservative. Being conservative was not enough. I had to be a neocon. And once I was a neocon, man, I was right, and I let everybody know. And then I realized how foolish I was that, I was a neocon. And then I realized, well, maybe I don't need to be a Catholic anymore. And maybe I don't need to vote anymore. Maybe I don't even need to work for a corporation anymore. And, maybe I don't need money in their system. And then you start questioning everything, and then you realize that true power, your inner self, is what you should be working towards. And it takes a lot of time and energy to bring forth all that stuff, and it's a big process, and one in which if you don't start now, you're not going to be able to do it when the lights go out, so to speak, of the next crisis, because you'll be worried about the lower end of Maslow's pyramid and not developing your highest and best self at the top.
Green goes on to say that you have to learn to read people in the moment, seeing them as individuals and trying to gain an understanding of them from the inside out. That way you have empathy. Such empathy will provide invaluable in being able to persuade or seduce them. You gain this intuitive feeling by cutting off your own ego, the voice inside your head, and listening and observing more deeply. The other reason that he says, or that he recommends gaining more social intelligence, is that you have to learn how to see yourself as others see you, using them as a mirror to help correct your own social flaws. Interesting topic.
You talk about empathy. Again, another opposite consciousness to the psychopathy that is so prevalent in the world. This narcissistic, me. But when you're empathetic, you really don't care about yourself. You're more, reading other people and caring for them and encouraging them, which is the complete opposite consciousness of the world that's going on today. So that to me is another key towards finding your true self, because I think also when you're empathetic, when you're empathetic to others, you can also give yourself a break. I think far too often some people are very hard on themselves because they're not empathetic. They're hard on themselves. They're replaying the negative, toxic people's voices in their heads, and they need to give themselves a break. I mean, it's not easy. There's no roadmap to this, or maybe we're getting a roadmap, but it's certainly not one that's empirically accepted all over the world, and that there's a certain path to take. Like our schooling system, or corporate career path, or whatever collectivist group out there.
Yeah.
And then the talking about the ego. The ego is where we've said before, you got to kill it. I mean, that's where all the scarcity mentality and the competitiveness and the scarcity and all this stuff comes from, is because you kind of get so concerned about controlling and you being right and enforcing your will upon others. And once you become more empathetic, you start to let that go and realize that we're kind of all in this together, and that we need to, really be more abundant mentality versus scarcity mentality, more empathetic versus this psychopathy that's so prevalent, and instead of being me, narcissistic, start being, what can I do to help others? And I think the best way of helping others is being your highest and best self. And I think the confident, empowered individual who's independent of the system is probably the greatest gift to those that are around them.
The Silvershield Exchange is a free weekly podcast, but the only way to hear it is through email. Sign up today at silvershieldexchange.com.